What schooling have you had in art?
When I was a young child, I went to the Brooklyn Museum Art School on Saturdays. I did that from the age of 7 through high school. It was a wonderful place to go to art school. I also mostly we drew in the galleries, and I have to say that that was a great experience. I went to a big university, and where I studied art, I got a BA in art. And then I went to graduate school at Queens College and got my MFA in painting.
You began art at a young age. What made you want to become an artist or start making art?
When I was a very young child, I wanted to be an artist. That's what I wanted to do. I actually, at the age of 4, 5, 6, I had a studio, and my studio was the area behind the couch. And I kept all my crayons and all my papers back there. And I would go back into I didn't call it my studio, but I would go back there and I would draw for hours. When I was actually in elementary school, I think kindergarten, they gave me, yellow, blue, and red paint, white and black. That's what they give kids, right? And I demanded more jars. And they were like, "What do you mean you need more jars?" And I said, "I need to mix my colors." And they thought I was really a brat, of course. But the truth is that they were not going to provide me more jars. In fact, I got a letter home from my parents, for my parents, and I was told to bring my own jars. So already that was how I began my life. And I guess there's no turning back.
Once you started taking your work more seriously, what did your earliest works look like?
It's interesting you add. That's a very interesting question, Cole. My earliest works where I really had the conception that I was trying to make art were very crazy figurative paintings that were kind of like pop art. I remember painting certain things very large. I was very influenced by the artist, the painter Wayne Thiebaud, who just turned 100, by the way, and is still painting. And when he was asked what he wanted to do on his birthday, he said, "I'm painting. What do you think I'm doing?" But I made paintings of big shirts, of I remember a big pot of baked beans, a big fork. So those were like my first things that I thought about, trying to think about not just having a skill set, but actually trying to have content in the work.
And when did you start making artworks professionally?
I don't know what that means.
Like when were you able to make art that was just a passion become like your career and like something that you can like live off of?
So I'll say that I use a different terminology. What I
Mhm.
would say is that my life is an artist, and that's what I do full time.
Yeah.
Make a living, this is always a struggle for every artist, except for a few. And you're asking me, when did I think that? Well, even when I was in graduate school, I taught college. I taught at
Mhm.
a community college. So it was always that I never had like a separate job. I never had a job doing something that was not art related. So you can say that even from the beginning of my work life, when I was in college, I actually was an apprentice at a museum. And I will tell you, I loved working there. I loved it. It was the Albany Institute of History and Art in Albany, New York.
And I believe you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but where have you taught as an art instructor and what types of classes did you teach?
I probably haven't told you all the places I've taught. Before moving to Atlanta, my spouse and I were what we used to call academic gypsies, which meant that we would move every year. And whoever got the better job, we moved to whatever town that job was in. And so I've taught everywhere from museums to government-run programs for people in disaster areas. I taught painting in that situation, to students, to teaching painting and drawing at the College of William and Mary in Virginia, to teaching at the Atlanta College of Art. And that's the last place I taught. And I stopped teaching college teaching, I think it's almost 20 years ago.
How do you come up with your ideas for your art installations?
The ideas start with the place. The place and the site are the most important part. And secondly is the quality of light and how the light comes through the place, comes through the window, I should say. Because there's a direction, of course, because I'm using the sun as my source of light. And I found that it's very different in different places. So I always say that the building is my silent partner.
And without revealing obviously too much about how you go about things, what would you say is like your process for creating most of your works?
So, in terms of the large scale transparencies or translucencies, what most people don't know is that they always start with a painting. So there is a painting that I make and I choose. I usually do several paintings all around the same size that I'm thinking about to use as a place of manipulation and beginning. That painting then comes into my computer, and then I use multiple programs to add, to subtract, to layer that image. Um, and so that there's this new image, this new thing that happens, but they all come from your painting.
You mentioned your transparency work. What inspired you to start making the transparent window projects?
So in 1999, I had a commission to do a work in a library in Alpharetta, Georgia. And I made this work. It was called Looking Forward, Looking Back, which were big uh, panels of glass that had been tinted in different colors, silk screened in black with an image, and etched with a text that was written by my collaborator. These panels hung in the throughout the library. It was a very well received project. It was about the way that this area here in Alpharetta was changing. And even 20 years ago, 21 years ago, um, change was happening. It's even more changed now. So it had a sort of a meaning, and it was created for this community. I was really speaking to the community. It was very well received by critics, by the community, by the government entity, which was Fulton County, that sponsored this commission. But at the end, when I was finished, I looked at it and I said, well, it's a great work, it's a successful work, but it's not about painting. So then I got a call to propose something to the High Museum. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take what I learned about transparency and color and glass, and I'm going to figure out how to do this with painting.
And which of your public art pieces are you most proud of?
Well, I really am very happy with the project that I have, the exhibition that I have up right now in Évora, Portugal. This is a very large exhibition. It's called Strata, and it's in a building that's from originally from 1537, which was the court and prison of the Inquisition. Um, it's been many things over the years. It's currently a very beautiful art center. And I did 25 by 7 foot windows in layers of color that stream through the window, sort of reflecting on all the layers of this place. So that's a very special exhibition for me, and it's current. It'll be up through March 2021. What's also significant about this exhibition is that the people who have seen it have had this amazing response and feeling that it's something of healing in this difficult time. It's a very joyful exhibition of color floating through the space, and many people have actually posted images interacting with the work on Instagram and Facebook. People I don't know, and have hashtagged me. So that's been a real joy for me.
Do you keep a constant meaning between each of your installations, or do you change up the backing idea between each one?
So because each installation is for a particular space, for a particular building, for a particular light, they all are different. However, there is something that happened in my very first big installation, which was at the High Museum, a work called Retracings, which is in their permanent collection, which covered 265 windows of the Richard Meyer building on the second, third, and fourth floors, um, that the viewer actually could be inside the painting. This was my way of actually allowing the viewer to see inside the work, to have the color come through the window and onto the person. What's interesting about the piece at the High Museum was before, and even in the preparatory studies for that commission, there was more of a landscape present. And I remember doing tests, and I put the tests on the window in the museum. And I don't know why I didn't know this from the beginning, but what happened when I put the test on the window, all of a sudden I saw Peachtree Street, this urban street, through my transparency. And I said, you know what? I no longer need to put the landscape there. The landscape is what you see through the work. And that became a very pivotal and important point in how I proceed to make the work. Also, color is very important, and the idea of color as translucent or transparent light, because there is something very beautiful about color as it's sort of like stained glass. It's not just also the work itself, but it's also the projections that come through the windows, the colored light that floats through the gallery space, or in the case of retracings, it was the entire atrium.
And that is it.